You are so focused on what you don't have that you fail to see the future that's meant for you, the reality that you will have shortly, the reality that will come from your hard work. I just watched this video by Dan Beyer, and he basically talks about Neville Goddard's 4D and 3D theory, which basically states that everything in the 3D is what you can perceive with your senses, your five senses, and everything in the 4D is an energetic potential reality. The point of the theory, though, is that both are absolutely reality. And when you understand this, you can kind of come to this conclusion that the things you imagine in your head, the future you imagine yourself having, is reality. It is real. You just need to accept that, and your reality will start to piece itself together in front of you. So you need to understand that where your focus goes, your energy goes to, and you start to feel like what you focus on. This is something that's said very commonly, but nobody ever really puts it into practice or helps you understand what that means. To really understand this, you have to know that where your focus and attention go, your energy goes. So for an example, if you're somebody that's, struggling to make payments, if you're somebody that's, struggling to find a girlfriend, find a partner, and you keep focusing on that one thing, that thing that you're missing. If you're running a business, for example, and you haven't had any clients, you haven't made any sales. If you're on YouTube, you haven't seen any views, any success. Focusing on the lack of pulls your attention away from what is or what can be. So the idea is that putting your attention on what doesn't exist yet will help you achieve that more than putting your attention on the lack of what doesn't exist yet. How do you converge the two? How do you make the 4D and the 3D your reality? How do you make the 4D the 3D? David Beyer explains that it's about first understanding that the 4D exists, right? Many people think these things and feel these thoughts and think that they're just thoughts in passing, think that they're solely just thoughts, think that it's solely just your imagination. But Goddard's theory transcends this and tries to explain to you that your imagination, your thoughts are just as real as your body, your reality around you, the physical things around you. You have to cut down the wall that separates what's physical from what's not physical. And when you start to at least acknowledge that idea, at least acknowledge the fact that there can be reality in your thoughts, that's the first step to really bringing them to life. Then once you acknowledge that these things can be a reality, you need to view them as an unseen, an unmanifested reality as opposed to a fantasy, right? If you think of yourself in 10 years with $1 million, successful business, doing whatever, and you think to yourself, oh, well, that's a fantasy, I'll never have that. That's exactly what it will be. But if you look at that vision and say, you know what, that's a real possibility, that can be a real possibility in my life, then you'll start to acknowledge the ways of getting that. And then your energy will start to flow there. Your attention will start to flow there to what you're wanting, that vision of yourself that you want. And naturally over time, your actions will start to align with that if you keep holding that vision strong. On the contrary, if you're somebody that's struggling financially, maybe they're, like I said, dealing with things like some of the things I mentioned earlier, you started a business, it's not picking up. You started a YouTube channel, it's not picking up. If you leave your attention on those things, then your energy and your mood will reflect that. But if you tell yourself all the things that you do have, what is good about your life? What can I take away from my life right now? And you just focus on that, you'll be focusing on the positives, and thus your mood will be increased. My mom always used to say, let it go and it will come to you. If your dream is 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, or a business that does $1 million annual recurring revenue, then you need to first acknowledge those things as a possibility, take the steps that you know you have to take towards them, and let go of what is not there, right? My mom always used to say that phrase in reference to us like losing a toy. She would say this because if we focused on the lack of our toy, we would be in this negative mindset and being so, caught up in why we don't have it and frustrated that we don't have it, that it would blur our vision for when we're looking for it. But if we kind of let it go and just, let things run its course, you will notice that in the time of looking for it, it'll come back naturally. I want to close this off with an example, and David Byer used the example of mercury poisoning. He had high levels of mercury from eating an only fish diet, and that was a health issue he was dealing with for a while. And he was struggling to figure out what it was. He went to various doctors, as he explains, and eventually literally sat down with ChatGPT, and they were able to deduct actually what it was. But it was through his lack of focus on what wasn't there, meaning a proper deduction of what was wrong with him. And he focused on being the person that is healthy, being the person that doesn't have any issues. For me, I had a dandruff issue actually, and I moved to Rome a couple of months ago, and I just decided that I need to take my focus, take my attention off of this. Actually, from more advice from my mother. She said, take your attention, take your focus off of it. And then about a month into my living here, I decided that I was just going to do something. And I calmly deducted it. I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't annoyed about my issue. I just figured out that I was going to do something about it. And ironically enough, I did speak to Claude, another AI chatbot, but I was able to deduce what my issue was. And I found a treatment that worked for me, and it's healed completely. It's gone. And now I'm somebody that doesn't have to deal with that issue. So the idea of letting go and understanding that focusing your attention on what's bad about your issue is only going to force you to hold on to it tighter to the point where it'll never leave. So you need to learn to acknowledge that the existence of the solution to your issue or what it is that you're looking for does exist. But just because it doesn't exist yet on a physical level doesn't mean it's not there. That's how you have to think. You need to understand that the solution to this does exist and that you are going to get it. I want to talk more about this and the idea of being playful surrounding this, but I'm actually going to do it in the next video. So that's going to be it for this one. Thank you for watching.